Oh, hi. This is Digital Beersborn. Welcome back to AP Art History. We're going to take a look at one more example of prehistoric art that again comes from this area, the Pacific Islands. Our final piece is known as the Lapita terracotta fragment. And this prehistoric work comes more specifically from the Solomon Islands. Now let's start with the formal qualities. As the title suggests, this object is made out of terracotta. Terracotta is a red ceramic clay, the kind of thing that we see used for flower pots today. As we talked about before, ceramic material is a soft clay that hardens by being heated up in a kiln. A kiln is a super hot oven that is able to turn ceramic clay into a durable material. Now, the culture that produced this object did not have the technology to build a kiln at this point in time. Instead, what they would use is just a normal fire, an open air fire, to harden these objects, which make them perhaps not quite as durable as if they had been made in a kiln. But they were still able to dig up the terracotta clay and harden it to some degree in open fires. Now, the function of this object, we're looking at just a small fragment of what would have originally been a larger pot. The assumption is that these pots were used to store food or water, to transport resources. But what we have today are just a couple small pieces of that once larger object. Now, the content of this, what we have on the clay itself are patterns that have been stamped into the terracotta before it was hardened in the fire. We can see abstract designs of circles and scratch marks that create complex abstract patterns within the clay itself. These types of patterns we see in later art made by other cultures of Pacific Islanders, work that we would have looked at if we had time to get to the Pacific Island cultures, like the Hiapo or the face tattoos of the indigenous people of the Pacific Islands. But since we're not going to look at those pieces specifically, I would just know that the types of patterns we see in this prehistoric art are reflected in later artwork of Pacific Island cultures. What's also notable about this piece is if you look on the top right side, you'll see what looks like an abstract face. This is the earliest known depiction of a face in art in the Pacific Islands. Now, who that face is meant to represent, whether it is an ancestor or a deity or a specific person, that is unknown. The context for this work is pretty mysterious. Like we've talked about previously, because this is a prehistoric work of art, we don't know much about the contextual information. It predates written language. What we do know, because of the location where it was found, is that it was most likely made by the Lapita culture. The Lapita culture are one of the earliest populations to live on the Solomon Islands, and they traveled through small boats to other islands within the Pacific Island area to settle and populate many of the islands in this specific area. The assumption is that objects like this would have been carried with them to transport water and food, and perhaps left behind, which went to influence cultures that grew on other Pacific islands in the forms and designs that they used in their art as well. And that is the Lapita terracotta fragment.